Google became the latest social media company to take a stance on political ads, announcing in a blog post it will ban micro-targeting for its political ads and saying it will police misleading or false claims and manipulated images and videos like deep fakes. Joining us right now to talk about that decision is Andrew Marantz. He's the staff writer at The New Yorker and author of the book Antisocial, and it's good to see you this morning.
Yeah.
How much pressure, well, I want to talk about the decision itself, but I'm actually, in a way, more curious about how much pressure you think this decision puts on Facebook now.
Yeah, I think this is the decisive thing for Facebook. You know, you saw Facebook take this big stance, we're not going to do anything about political ads. Then Twitter says we're banning all political ads. This seems like the Goldilocks solution that Facebook, I think, was always edging toward anyway. You know, there was this internal letter among Facebook employees saying, here are 6 things we could do. The main thing they suggested was to get rid of micro-targeting on political ads, and now Google comes out and does it. It's going to be very hard for Facebook to not go along. This seems like the consensus that everybody's moving toward.
Except for this, and there's one part that I've always sympathized to some degree with Mark Zuckerberg on, which is I imagine even though Google will have a system in place to try to prevent the deep fakes and other things from getting through the system, that invariably there will be an ad that will break through, unfortunately. And then hopefully they'll clean it up, and they'll clean it up quickly. But it'll make headlines, people will talk about it, and everybody will say that the system is broken. And he would argue that he doesn't want to be in that place. So the question is, how effective do you think that the systems and tools that Google will build, and how many people they're going to have around? By the way, not just in the United States, this is around the world.
Yeah. Well, look, I agree that nothing is ever going to be perfect. And weirdly, when it's information and online speech, we expect all or nothing. We expect 0 or 100. With any other product, you know, you have certain regulations on Tylenol, and if there's a bad batch, you know, you want to prevent that, but you don't think it's going to be perfect. I mean, I've gone back and traced for the last 3 years how these guys in tech, they want to not be ever perceived as gatekeepers. But in my book, I call them the new gatekeepers because they are, whether they like it or not. And in any other industry, we expect that of people, you know? It's not going to be perfect, but you have to try. You can't just say, my stance is I don't try to clean it up. Of course, that's a more ideologically pure stance, but it doesn't protect consumers.
But the other piece of it is, how much pushback do you think Google is going to get when they start to block ads on issues that arguably are false, but there will be this argument that it's really in the eye of the beholder?
Absolutely. It's all about where you set lines. And I think we've seen, this is why I think it's a Goldilocks thing, we've seen Facebook say we're not going to touch it. We've seen Twitter say we're not going to take ads. This is the kind of stance that these companies always want to take. They always want to say all or nothing. And it's just not realistic. The reason that it's so key for them to own up to the gatekeeper status is that they started this whole thing saying we're innovators, we're disruptors, we have nothing to do with the gatekeepers, we want to stay out of that business. Of course, because it's a tough business.
But the gatekeeper business, so the other piece of this is whether you think being a gatekeeper makes a company lean more right or more left, right? And right now, Facebook and Google, too, feel that they are in the target zone in a bipartisan way, but to some degree, I think there's actually a greater worry about Republicans rather than Democrats.
Well, I mean, you know, the elephant in the room with all this, obviously, is Trump. I mean, this stuff didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of a Trump campaign ad that had specific allegations about Biden that were demonstrably false. There's always been lying in politics. There's always been shading and misinformation, but it's gotten ramped up. It's gotten out of control. And so it's hard for that not to be the specter hanging over everything, whether they want it to be or not. I mean, they definitely don't want it to be, but it is, whether they like it or not.